She was invisible, just another part of the decor, there to pour wine and clear plates. To the woman in the Chanel jacket, she was less than human. She was just trash. But that trash held a secret. While the wealthy customer dined on a $500 steak, she didn't know the waitress she was insulting was the one who signed the restaurant's checks. This isn't just a story about payback. It's about what happens when the person you despise holds all the power. And the moment of the reveal is one you will not want to miss. The restaurant, Aura, was a cathedral of hushed wealth in the heart of Los Angeles. It was a place built of brushed bronze, slabs of white marble, and glass walls that framed the glittering, indifferent city lights. Getting a reservation required either knowing someone or booking 6 months in advance. The air hummed with the quiet confidence of people who had never been told no. And into this temple, Elena Rodriguez walked, not as its creator, but as its lowest servant. Today she was Lena. She wore the same stiff black uniform as the other waitstaff, an apron tied so tightly it pinched, and flat, sensible shoes that already felt like prisons. Her dark hair was pulled back in a severe regulation bun, and her face was bare, save for the mask of nervous, eager-to-please humility she had perfected decades ago. This was her 3rd day. To the rest of the staff, she was a quiet, slightly too old for this level hire, a woman maybe starting over after a divorce or a failed career. They had no idea she was the Elena Rodriguez, founder and CEO of the Rodriguez Hospitality Group, a global empire of 5-star hotels and Michelin-starred restaurants. They didn't know that Aura was her problem child, her $10 million passion project, and that she had personally put 80% of the capital into it. The other 20% belonged to Mark Jennings, the restaurant's general manager. Mark had been a rising star in her New York hotel, a man with a golden tongue, and what she had thought was a brilliant knack for service. She'd backed him, given him his dream, made him a partner. And he was failing. The numbers were catastrophic. Food costs were through the roof. Labor was a revolving door, and the bar was mysteriously leaking thousands of dollars in high-end liquor every week. But worse were the reviews. They were wildly polarized. 5 stars, the food is divine, would be followed by 1 star, the most arrogant and incompetent service I have ever experienced. The manager treated us like dirt. Elena didn't build an empire by trusting spreadsheets. She built it by trusting her gut, and her gut told her Mark was the rot. So she had done what she always did when a flagship was sinking. She went undercover. She'd had her executive assistant, James, create a fake resume for Lena and apply. Mark, never having met the reclusive CEO of RHG, they'd always communicated through her VPs, had hired Lena after a cursory 5-minute interview, more interested in her availability than her non-existent experience. All right, newbies, listen up. The shift briefing was led not by Mark, but by Sarah Klein, the lead waitress. Sarah was a woman in her late 40s, with sharp, tired eyes and an aura of cynicism that was almost comforting. Tonight is Friday. The wolves are out. We are fully booked, plus the wait list. Chef Antoine is in one of his moods, which means do not go back to the kitchen unless a ticket is perfect. Leo, she pointed to a young busboy, Leo Martinez, who looked barely 18. For God's sake, water glasses above half full. Don't make them ask. Leo nodded, his face pale with anxiety. Eleanor felt a pang of sympathy. She'd been Leo once. And Lena, Sarah's eyes landed on her. You're with me. You're shadowing, but you're taking tables 10 through 12. They're 2 tops. Easy. Just don't get in the way. Don't drop anything. And whatever you do, do not let Mr. Jennings see you standing still. He hates it. Makes his eye twitch. Mark Jennings himself glided into the briefing, looking less like a manager and more like a game show host. His suit was sharkskin grey and overly tight. His teeth were a blinding white, and he smelled powerfully of expensive cologne. People, 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 he clapped his hands. Let's make some magic tonight. Tonight is all about the experience. He pronounced it experience. We are not just serving food. We are serving status. We are selling exclusivity. When the guests walk in, I want you to make them feel like they are the only people in the world. He scanned the room, his eyes gliding right over Eleanor. The Blackwoods are coming in at 8. Section 3. Sarah, I want you on that. Flawless. The best of everything. They are friends. Very, very good friends of the restaurant. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Lena, you're new. Don't mess this up for everyone. Elena just nodded, her face impassive. Yes, Mr. Jennings. She'd already seen the rot. In her first 2 days, she'd seen Mark grab a bottle of $800 Chateau Margaux from the cellar for a table of his friends and mark it as corked. She'd seen him berate Leo, the busboy in the service hallway, calling him slow and stupid until the kid was shaking. She'd seen him ignore a legitimate complaint from a couple at table 5, only to rush over and kiss the ring of a C-list reality TV star at table 2, offering them free champagne just for being you. He was a sycophant to power and a bully to the powerless. It was the combination she despised most in the world. Her own story was a testament to the opposite. Elena Rodriguez had started as trash. She'd been a dishwasher at 16 in a dingy diner in El Paso, her hands raw and red, her family packed into a 2-bedroom apartment. She'd been a waitress, a line cook, a night manager. She'd worked 100-hour weeks, saved every penny, learned every facet of the business from the drain up. Her first break was a failing taco truck she bought with a high-interest loan. She'd turned it into a fleet, then a small bistro, then a hotel. She knew what it was to be invisible, to be treated as a tool, not a person, and she had sworn that her companies, her empire, would be built on a foundation of respect. Mark Jennings was spitting on that foundation. Showtime, Sarah muttered, pulling Elena from her thoughts as the first guests began to filter in. For the first 2 hours, Lena was a model employee. She was quiet, efficient, and precise. Her movements were economical, honed by 20 years of service she hadn't put on her resume. She delivered plates, cleared courses, and reset tables with a silent grace. Sarah watched her, a small frown on her face. You said you never waited tables before, Lena? Not at this level, Elena lied smoothly, polishing a wine glass. Huh, Sarah replied. You're a natural. You carry a tray like you were born with it. You're too good for this, kid, and too old to be starting. What's your story? Elena gave her the practiced one. Husband left. Took everything. Just starting over. Need the money. Sarah's face softened, the cynicism replaced by a weary empathy. I get it. We all need the money. Well, stick with me. I'll protect you from the sharks, both the ones at the tables and the one in the grey suit. The restaurant was in full swing. The noise level was a high, expensive thrum. In the kitchen, Chef Antoine Dubois, a brilliant but volatile Frenchman, was screaming about the temperature of the scallops. Imbecile! C'est en caoutchouc! This is rubber! Elena felt a strange, familiar comfort in the chaos. This was the dance she knew, the heat, the pressure, the rhythm of service. She was observing everything. The flaw in the PORS system that made splitting checks a nightmare, the inefficient layout of the service bar, the way Leo, the busboy, was clearly working a double, his young face slick with sweat and fatigue. She made a mental note. Mandatory breaks. Double-check his pay stubs. He looks like he's not even 18. She was clearing plates from table 11 when she heard the voice. It wasn't loud, but it cut through the din like a shard of ice. "This is not the table I requested." Elena looked up. Standing at the host stand was a woman who seemed to have been sculpted from expensive porcelain and spite. The woman was Victoria Blackwood. She was flawlessly assembled. Her blonde hair was a miracle of engineering, a sleek, severe bob that didn't move an inch. She wore a Chanel tweed jacket in a pale, icy blue, draped over her shoulders like a cape. A white Hermes Birkin, a real one, Elena noted, not one of the high-end fakes that populated LA, was dangling from her forearm. Her diamonds were sharp, bright, and cold. Beside her, her husband, David Blackwood, looked like a man perpetually bracing for impact. He was handsome in a generic, finance bro way, scrolling through his phone with a deep crease of stress between his brows. He was new money, a tech hedge fund manager who had made a killing, and he was still slightly bewildered by the world of extreme wealth his wife navigated with such aggressive certainty. "Mrs. Blackwood, Mr. Blackwood, welcome, welcome." Mark Jennings was already there, bowing and scraping, his smile stretched to its limit. "Mark," Victoria said, not smiling back, "I requested the founder's booth. Table 40. We are at table 22. This is unacceptable." "Victoria," David murmured, not looking up from his phone. "It's fine. It's just a table." "It is not fine, David," she snapped. "The founder's booth has the best light, and it's private. Table 22 is practically in the hallway. I don't want to be seen by everyone." She said, "everyone," as if it were a contagion. Mark was sweating. "Mrs. Blackwood, I am so sorry. There was a mix-up in the system. Table 40 is currently occupied by Mr. Peterson." Victoria's eyes narrowed. "Michael Peterson? The B-list actor? You're giving him my table? Mark, we are investors, not actors." Elena, clearing a nearby table, felt her blood run cold. Investors? She had personally vetted the investment pool. The Blackwoods were not on it. What is she talking about? Of course, Mrs. Blackwood, let me see what I can do." Mark was panicking. He looked over at table 40, where the actor and his wife were just starting their appetizers. "Mark," Victoria said, her voice dropping to a silken threat, "fix it, or we'll be dining at Spago, and I'll be sure to tell my entire circle that Aura is slipping. Terribly." This was the ultimate threat. In this world, social currency was everything. A bad word from Victoria Blackwood could poison the well. "Right away, of course." Mark hurried over to table 40. Elena watched, appalled, as Mark, the general manager, asked the seated guests to move. She couldn't hear the words, but she saw the confusion on the actor's face, the polite refusal, then Mark's insistent whispering. He was offering them endless free champagne, a future reservation, anything. Finally, with a put-upon sigh, the couple agreed. They were moved to the unacceptable table 22, and Mark personally oversaw the sanitizing and resetting of the founder's booth. "Disgusting," Sarah muttered, as she flew by Elena with a tray of cocktails. "He just kicked them out?" Elena asked, stunned. "He's a coward," Sarah said. "And she's a predator. She smells weakness. And he," she nodded at Mark, "reeks of it. And guess what? The founder's booth. It's in your section." Elena's stomach tightened. "I tried to tell him it's your section," Sarah continued, her voice low and fast. He said, "No, Sarah, you take them. He wants his best on them. But I told him I'm triple sat. So he's letting you. He thinks you're too dumb to mess it up, but professional enough to be invisible. Just be a robot, Lena. No emotion. No mistakes. Get in. Get out. Eleanor steeled herself. Right. A robot. Mark Jennings personally escorted the Blackwoods to the now vacant booth. Here we are. My deepest apologies for the wait. It's fine, David said, finally pocketing his phone and giving Eleanor a brief, polite nod as she approached with water menus. Victoria, however, was scanning the booth. She ran a finger over the velvet, checked the cutlery, and stared at Elena as if she were a piece of gum on her shoe. Lena put on her brightest, most subservient smile. Good evening. My name is Lena, and I will be your... Evian, Victoria cut her off. A 1.5-litre bottle. Not Fiji, not Voss. Evian. And I want 2 glasses, each with one single, perfectly clear, spherical ice cube. Not crushed, not crescent. A sphere. Can you handle that? Yes, ma'am. Right away, Elena said, her voice betraying nothing. She turned to David. And for you, sir? Just tap is fine. With lemon. David, don't be pedestrian, Victoria sighed. He'll have the Evian, and bring the wine list, the reserve list, not the children's menu you give the tourists. Of course, Elena said. She retreated to the service station, her hands steady but her jaw tight. The reserve list. She knew it well. She had curated it with the sommelier. She'd personally sourced the 1982 Chateau Lafite and the rare vertical of Screaming Eagle. This woman, who thought her a fool, was about to order from a list Elena had spent months building. She returned with the water, the specific ice, and the heavy, leather-bound reserve list. She presented the bottle of Evian, opening it tableside with a crisp psst. She poured Victoria's water, the sphere of ice clinking delicately. Victoria watched her every move. You're new. I've never seen you. I am, ma'am. It's my 3rd day, Elena replied, keeping her eyes down. It shows, Victoria sniffed it. She opened the wine list. David had already retreated back into his phone, his face illuminated by the blue light, a silent portrait of marital misery. Victoria's finger, with its perfect, blood-red nail, scanned the page. She was the kind of customer who looked for a weapon, not a preference. She wanted to test the staff, to prove they were beneath her. She mused. The 2005 Domaine de la Romanée Conti, the La Tâche. What's your opinion on it? This was a test. The La Tâche was a $7,000 bottle of wine. Elena didn't blink. She shifted from Lena the terrified newbie to Elena the expert, just for a second. The 2005 is an extraordinary vintage, ma'am. It's truly at its peak. You'll find it has that classic DRC profile, heavy on the forest floor, black cherry and exotic spice. But the 05 has a structured power to it. The tannins have softened beautifully, but the acidity is still bright. It's a profound wine. There was a flicker in Victoria's eyes. Surprise. She had expected the waitress to stammer and run for the sommelier. David even looked up from his phone, impressed. Victoria recovered quickly. A structured power. How poetic. Did you read that on a card in the back? Elena's smile remained. I just try to learn about the products, ma'am. Fine, Victoria snapped, annoyed at having lost the upper hand. Bring it and decant it properly. I want to see the sediment. Don't you dare shake it. Of course. Elena retrieved the bottle from the temperature-controlled cellar, her mind racing. This was a $7,000 sale. Mark would be ecstatic. But the woman was a viper. As she carried the bottle to the table in its little cradle, she passed Mark. Good Lord, Lena, he hissed, his eyes wide at the label. Be careful. That's a real bottle. Let me get the sommelier. It's all right, Mr. Jennings. I'm comfortable with the decanting process, Elena said calmly. You'd better be. If you drop that, it's coming out of your pay. All of it. For a year. He wasn't joking. Elena set up the decanting station next to the table. She lit the candle. She presented the cork. She began the long, slow, steady pour, the candlelight shining through the bottle's neck, allowing her to stop the instant the fine sediment reached it. It was a perfect, textbook pour. Victoria watched, saying nothing, but she could find no fault. Your Lena seems to know her wine, David remarked, finally engaging. She's a performing monkey, David. She learned a trick, Victoria said, loud enough for Elena to hear. She swirled the wine in her glass. It's adequate. I'll return to take your food order shortly, Elena said, bowing her head and walking away, the insult ringing in her ears. Performing monkey. She's a nightmare, Sarah whispered, refilling water at the next station. But you handled that wine like a master. Where the hell did you work before? Just a place, Elena said. The night was just beginning, and she had a feeling it was about to get much, much worse. The order was as complicated and demanding as Victoria herself. I will start with the steak tartare, Victoria announced, tapping the menu. But I want it made with the filet mignon, not the sirloin. And I want the capers, rinsed. I find the brine so aggressive. And the quail egg must be exactly 45 seconds poached. Not 40, not 50. I will know. Elena kept her face placid. Of course. And for your main? The Dover sole, Meunière. But I want it filleted table-side. And I want to see it before you cook it. I won't have you swapping it for a cheaper flounder. Mrs. Blackwood, I can assure you, Chef Antoine, I don't care about Chef Antoine. I care about what I am paying for. Show me the fish. Elena nodded, her pen moving silently. And for you, Mr. Blackwood? David sighed. I'll just have the New York strip, medium rare, and a side of the, truffle fries. David, fries. It's so common, Victoria muttered. I like fries, Victoria. Eleanor took the menus. Understood. I'll put that right in. She walked to the kitchen. The pass was a chaotic war zone. Chef Antoine Dubois, a man with a wild halo of grey hair and a perpetually furious expression, was inspecting every plate before it went out. Chef, Elena said, approaching with caution. Quai, he barked. Elena recited the order, calmly and precisely. When she got to the part about the rinsed capers, the 45-second egg, and the previewing of the sole, Antoine's face turned a shade of puce. Elle se moque de moi? He roared, throwing down his tasting spoon. She is mocking me. Rinsed capers. For 45 seconds. Does she bring a stopwatch? And she wants to see the fish? Am I a fishmonger now? This is not a market. This is aura. I know, Chef, Elena said, her voice dropping into the quiet, authoritative tone she used with her own high-strung chefs. She is particular. But she is also at the founder's booth. Mr. Jennings wants her accommodated. Jennings, Antoine spat. That comptable. He is not a restaurateur. He is a bean counter in a shiny suit. He knows nothing of food. But he is the manager, Elena said simply. And the customer is the customer. Antoine glared at her. He hated the order, but he respected her delivery. She hadn't whined. She hadn't blamed him. She'd just stated the facts. Merde, he grumbled. Fine, fine. I will poach her stupid egg. I will rinse her stupid capers. But you go to the walk-in. You get the sole. The best one. You show it to the reine, the queen, and then you bring it back. What a circus. Allez, go. Elena did as she was told. She retrieved the beautiful, pearlescent Dover sole from the fish drawer, laid it on a silver tray with crushed ice and presented it to Victoria Blackwood. "Is this satisfactory, ma'am?" Victoria peered at it. She poked it with her fork. "It seems small." "It's 1.5 pounds, ma'am. It's the standard portion." "Fine, cook it, and don't overdo the butter." The appetizers came out. Elena placed the steak tartare in front of Victoria. It was perfect. The meat was beautifully hand-cut. The capers were visible but dry, and the quail egg on top was a glistening jewel. Victoria stared at it for a full minute. Then she took her fork and, with a flick of her wrist, broke the yolk. It ran, thick and jammy. "This is wrong." Elena froze. "Ma'am? It's runny," Victoria said, her voice full of disgust. "I said 45 seconds. This is clearly 30. It's raw. It's disgusting. Take it back." "Ma'am, a 45-second poach will always result in a liquid yolk. That is the nature of a poached quail egg for tartare." Victoria's eyes went from cold to arctic. "Are you arguing with me? Are you a waitress trying to tell me how my food should be? I don't care what the nature is. I care about what I asked for. And this is snot. It's inedible." David Blackwood winced. "Vic, just eat it. It looks fine." "It's not fine, David. It's incompetent." She pushed the plate away. "Take it back, and tell the chef his 45-second timer is broken, and take it off the bill." Of course, ma'am." Elena picked up the $48 appetizer, which was now ruined. She returned to the kitchen. Chef Antoine saw the plate. He saw the yolk. He said nothing. He simply took the plate, turned, and hurled it against the wall, where it shattered, the raw meat and egg sliding down the white tile. "Sortie!" he bellowed, pointing at the out door. "Get her out of my kitchen!" Elena retreated, her heart pounding. This was a complete breakdown of the system. The chef was at his limit. The customer was impossible, and the manager, Mark Jennings, was nowhere to be found. Elena spotted him at the bar, taking a selfie with a local news anchor. She returned to the table. "My deepest apologies, ma'am. Chef is remaking your appetizer." "Don't bother," Victoria sniffed. "You've ruined my appetite. Just bring the soul. And pray you get that right." The night wore on. Elena felt like she was walking on a tightrope made of razor wire. She served David's steak. "It's fine," he'd said, gratefully. She refilled Victoria's wine glass, a $7,000 bottle she was drinking like table water. She serviced her other tables, who seemed lovely by comparison. But she could feel the Blackwood table radiating a dark energy that sucked the air from the section. Finally, it was time for the main event. The Dover Sole. A gerudon, a small tableside service cart, was wheeled out. On it was a heating element, the gleaming copper pan holding the sole and the tools for filleting, a fish fork and a large, spade-like spoon. This was the height of classic service. It was a precise, delicate ballet. Elena had performed this service hundreds of times in her own restaurants. She knew the anatomy of the fish by heart. She pushed the cart next to the table. "The Dover sole, ma'am." "Let's see it then," Victoria said, leaning forward. Elena lifted the pan to show her. The fish was golden brown, bubbling lightly in the beurre noisette, the nutty brown butter, flecked with parsley and lemon. The smell was divine. "It looks overcooked," Victoria said. "It's perfectly pan-fried, ma'am," Elena replied, her patience wearing thin. She placed the pan on the warmer. She took her tools. With surgical precision, she made an incision down the fish's spine. Then, she deftly separated the top fillet from the bone, working the spoon under the delicate white flesh. She lifted the first fillet clean off. So far, so good. She placed it on Victoria's pre-warmed plate. Then, she did the same for the second, lower fillet. Perfect. Now for the tricky part. She had to lift the entire central bone structure out, leaving the 2 bottom fillets pristine in the pan. She slid the spoon under the tail, the fork under the head, and in one smooth, practiced motion, lifted the skeleton. It came out in a single, perfect piece. She smiled, allowing herself a brief moment of professional pride. Very theatrical, Victoria commented, unimpressed. Elena then spooned the 2 bottom fillets onto the plate, arranging all 4 pieces neatly. The final touch. She took the spoon, scooped up a small amount of the shimmering brown butter and parsley from the pan, and began to drizzle it over the fillets. And that's when it happened. As she was moving the spoon from the pan to the plate, a single, minuscule drop of the beurre noisette, a speck of oil no bigger than a pinhead, flew from the spoon. It arced through the air. It did not hit Victoria. It did not hit her Chanel jacket. It landed on the pristine white linen tablecloth about 3 inches from the base of her $20,000 Hermes bag. There was a moment of absolute silence. Elena froze, her spoon hovering. David saw it. Victoria, who had been watching Elena's every move like a hawk, saw it. It was nothing, a tiny golden speck on a field of white linen. In any other restaurant, at any other table, the waitress would have dabbed it with a napkin, murmured, "Pardon me," and the meal would have continued. But this was Victoria Blackwood's table. Victoria's perfectly made-up face did not change for a second. Then she very slowly, very deliberately, turned her head to look at the spot. She looked at the spot, then at her bag, then back at the spot. Then she lifted her eyes to Elena. "You," she whispered, her voice vibrating with a sudden, terrifying rage. "Ma'am, I am so—" Elena began, already reaching for a fresh napkin to cover the spot. "You incompetent idiot!" Victoria's voice was no longer a whisper. It was a low shriek that sliced through the restaurant's civilized hum. The thrum of conversation died. Forks stopped halfway to mouths. At table 22, the actor who had been moved, Michael Peterson, looked over with wide eyes. "You clumsy, clumsy fool." Victoria stood up, knocking her chair back. "Look what you did! Look!" "Victoria, for God's sake, it's on the tablecloth," David hissed, his face crimson. "It didn't even touch you." "It doesn't matter," she screamed. "It almost touched my bag. Do you have any idea what this is?" "This is a Birkin 205 in Nata Ostrich. It costs more than your house. It costs more than your entire pathetic life. And this filth," she gestured at Elena. "This animal just splattered her grease all over it." "Ma'am, I assure you, your bag is perfectly safe," Elena said, her voice shaking slightly, not from fear, but from a deep, seismic anger. Her professional mask was starting to crack. "It was a tiny drop of butter on the linen. I deeply apologize." "Apologize?" Victoria laughed, a harsh, barking sound. "You think sorry fixes this? This is the problem with places like this. You pay a fortune for atmosphere, and they hire this." She looked Elena up and down, her eyes filled with a disgust so pure it was almost breathtaking. "They hire trash." The word hung in the air. Trash. It echoed in the sudden, dead silence of the 200-seat restaurant. Leo, the busboy, who was nearby with a water pitcher, stopped dead, his eyes wide with fear. Sarah, at the service station, closed her eyes, as if in pain. Elena just stood there. Trash. The word transported her. She wasn't Elena Rodriguez, CEO, anymore. She was 16 again, in the back of that diner in El Paso, her hands bleeding into the soapy grey water, as the owner, a man named Mr. Henderson, threw a stack of dirty plates at her. "Hurry up, girl. You're worthless. Just white trash." Except he hadn't said white. She had clawed her way out of that life. She had built an empire on the idea that no one was trash, that the dishwasher was as important as the chef, that the busboy was as worthy of respect as the guest. And here, in her own restaurant, in her $10 million passion project, a woman in a Chanel jacket had just called her trash for a drop of butter. "You shouldn't be allowed to touch nice things," Victoria continued, her voice dripping with venom. She was on a roll, enjoying the audience. "You shouldn't be allowed to serve people like me. You are dirty. You are unfit. Where is your manager? Get me Mark. I want this thing fired. Now. I want to watch her get fired." David Blackwood finally stood up. "Victoria, that is enough. My God, sit down. You're making a scene." "I want to make a scene," she shrieked. "I am the customer. I am paying for this. I am paying for excellence. And I got her. I want her gone." Elena said nothing. She simply stood, her posture erect, her face a mask of stone. She had seen enough. She had heard enough. The experiment was over. She looked past Victoria's enraged, contorted face and saw Mark Jennings, his face the color of spoiled milk, sprinting towards the table. The coward had arrived. Mark Jennings skidded to a halt at the table, his eyes darting between Victoria's furious face, David's mortified one, and the tiny, insignificant spot of butter on the tablecloth. He looked everywhere, except at Lena. "Mrs. Blackwood, good heavens, what has happened? Is everything all right? Your soul, is it all right?" Victoria scoffed. "This waitress, this Lena, threw hot grease at me. She almost destroyed my Hermes bag, and when I complained, she was rude and insubordinate." Elena's eyes widened. The lie was so blatant, so audacious, it almost made her laugh. "That is not what happened," Elena said, her voice low and cold. "Don't you dare speak," Mark snapped at Elena, not even looking at her. He turned his full, fawning, terrified attention back to Victoria. "Mrs. Blackwood, please, sit down. Your meal is, of course, on the house. The wine, everything. And I don't want a free meal, Mark," Victoria seethed. "I want her fired. I want her thrown out. She is a disgrace to your restaurant. She is a piece of trash. And if you don't fire her right now, in front of me, I will. My husband will pull his investment," Victoria finished, her eyes gleaming with triumph. Elena's blood ran cold. "What?" Mark's face went from pale to ashen. "Yes, Mrs. Blackwood, please." David Blackwood finally spoke, his voice firm. "Victoria, we are not investors, honey. I looked at the deck. I passed." Victoria's face faltered for a fraction of a second. She had overplayed her hand. "David, don't contradict me. We know people. We know the real investors. The Rodriguez Group. I will call them. I will tell them you employ animals." Mark Jennings was now trapped. He had based his entire managerial style on placating the rich, and this particular rich person was holding a social nuclear bomb. He didn't care about the truth. He only cared about the noise. He turned to Elena. His eyes were no longer fawning. They were small, hard, and full of a coward's spite. This was her fault. She had caused this. "Lena," he said, his voice clipped, "apologize to Mrs. Blackwood. Now." Elena looked him straight in the eye. "I will apologize for the drop of butter on the linen, Mr. Jennings. I will not apologize for being called trash, filth, or an animal, and I will not stand here while she lies about what happened." The defiance stunned Mark. He had hired her as a meek, desperate, middle-aged woman. This was something else. Victoria gasped. "Insubordinate. You see, You see what I'm dealing with. Lena, go to my office. Now." Mark pointed a trembling finger toward the back. "You're done. You're done for the night. You're fired." "Fired?" Elena repeated, her voice perfectly calm. The entire restaurant was listening. "You're firing me, on the spot, because a customer lied, without asking for my side of the story." "I don't need your side," Mark was shouting now, his composure completely gone. "I have a guest, a very important guest, who is telling me you are incompetent and rude. That is all I need. You are a liability. You're a disaster. Now get out. Give me your apron." He was trying to make a show of it for Victoria, to prove his loyalty to her. Sarah, the veteran waitress, started to walk over. "Mark, that's not—" "I saw the whole thing." "You stay out of this, Sarah," Mark barked. "This doesn't concern you." He turned back to Eleanor. "Now, go. You are fired." Victoria Blackwood crossed her arms, a small, triumphant smirk playing on her lips. She had won. The little person had been put in her place. The trash was being taken out. Eleanor looked at Mark Jennings, the man she had entrusted with $10 million, the man she had made a 20% partner. She saw him, not as a manager, but as a cowering, weak-willed boy, a bully who would sacrifice his own staff to appease a monster. She had seen all she needed to see. The rot wasn't just in the finances. The rot was Mark Jennings. "All right," Elena said. Her voice was suddenly different. The leaner persona, the slight tremor of the nervous, subservient newbie, evaporated. She untied the black apron from her waist. The restaurant was so quiet you could hear the hiss of the fabric as it came undone. She didn't hand it to Mark. She folded it. Once, neatly. And then a second time, into a perfect, respectful square. She placed the folded apron on the corner of her service cart. "You're right, Mark," she said, her voice now clear and ringing, with an accent of crisp authority that no one in the room had ever heard from her. "I am done." She turned, not to the office, but to Victoria Blackwood. "My name," she said, "is not Lena." Victoria Blackwood's smirk wavered. "I don't care what your name is, just get out." "Oh, I think you will," Elena said. She stood to her full height. The subservient slump was gone, replaced by a posture of absolute command. The look in her eyes changed. The fearful waitress was gone, and in her place was a CEO, a general, an empress. "My name is Elena Rodriguez," she said, her voice cutting through the silence. The name meant nothing to Victoria. She scoffed. "And am I supposed to be impressed? Elena Rodriguez. Are you going to go clean toilets at another restaurant? Get out of my sight." But David Blackwood's head snapped up. His face, which had been a mask of pained embarrassment, went white. "Elena. Rodriguez? As in the Rodriguez Hospitality Group." Elena turned her cold, assessing gaze on him. "Yes, Mr. Blackwood, the same." Mark Jennings froze. His brain seemed to be short-circuiting, trying to process the information. "Lena, what joke is this? This isn't funny. Miss Rodriguez she's in New York." "I'm in Los Angeles, Mark," Elena said, turning her attention to him. The look she gave him was not of anger. It was of pure, bottomless disappointment. "I've been in Los Angeles for a week, working for you, as Lena. I wanted to see my investment firsthand. I wanted to see why my $10 million restaurant is bleeding cash and getting one-star reviews." Mark started to shake. His entire body. Ms. Rodriguez. I didn't. I'm your partner, Mark," Elena said, her voice merciless. "I am the 80% stakeholder in this company. I am the woman who signed your paycheck, who gave you this opportunity, and who you just fired, to appease her." She pointed at Victoria. Victoria Blackwood's jaw had dropped. Her perfect, porcelain face was a mask of confusion and dawning, catastrophic horror. You're lying. This is a trick. David, she's lying. David Blackwood just shook his head, looking at his wife as if for the first time. She's not lying, Vic. That's her. I've seen her picture. In Forbes. Oh my God. I've seen everything, Mark, Elena continued, her voice clinical. I've seen you comping $1,000 bottles of wine for your friends. I've seen you berating the bus boys. I've seen you turn this kitchen, with a genius like Antoine Dubois in it, into a circus. And tonight, I saw you ask a paying customer to move tables to placate this woman. And then, I saw you, the general manager, the leader of this team, throw one of your own staff to the wolves to save yourself. Ms. Rodriguez, please, Mark whispered. He was crying now, silent tears streaming down his face. I can explain. The pressure. She said she was an investor. I am the investor, Mark, Elena roared, and for the first time her voice was loud, filled with the fire that had built an empire. The entire restaurant flinched. There are no other investors. You lied to her to seem important, and you lied to me in your reports. She turned to Victoria, who had sunk back into her chair, her face ashen. You, Elena said, you come in here demanding, arrogant, and cruel. You abuse my staff. You lie. You treat people who are serving you, as if they are subhuman, as trash. She leaned in closer. Let me tell you something about trash, Mrs. Blackwood. I was trash. I washed dishes in a diner for $2 an hour. I slept in my car. I clawed my way up from nothing. Every single person in this room. Leo, the busboy you don't even see. Sarah, the waitress who has to put up with you. Chef Antoine, whose art you defile with your ignorant demands. They are all working harder than you ever have in your life. They are not trash. They are the engine of this restaurant. You are just a parasite. Victoria was speechless. She just stared, her mouth opening and closing. Elena pulled out her personal cell phone. She dialed a number. James, she said into the phone. It's Elena. I'm at Aura. Enact the emergency clause in the partnership agreement with Mr. Jennings. His management authority is suspended, effective immediately. Yes. Gross negligence and breach of fiduciary duty. Get the forensic accounting team in here by 8 a.m., and I want the transition team on a flight from New York tonight. I'll need a new GM by Monday. She paused. And yes, call security. I have a manager to be escorted out. And 2 guests who are trespassing. She hung up. Mark, she said, her voice now quiet, all the anger gone, replaced by a final, weary finality. Go to your office. Clear out your personal effects. Security will be here in 10 minutes to walk you out. We will discuss the details of your 20% buyout, which, after the accountants see what you've done, will likely be nothing. You are done in this industry. I'll make sure of it. Mark Jennings didn't even protest. He just nodded, a broken, sobbing man, and turned, walking the long, slow walk of shame, past all the staring diners and his former staff. Then, Elena Rodriguez turned back to the Blackwoods. The silence in the restaurant was absolute, broken only by the distant sound of Mark Jennings weeping in his office. Victoria Blackwood was staring at the tablecloth, at the single tiny spot of butter that had started it all. Her entire world, built on a carefully curated structure of status, fear, and expensive accessories, had just been leveled. To be shamed was one thing. To be shamed by a waitress, a woman she had identified as her inferior, who was, in fact, one of the most powerful women in the city, was an annihilation. David Blackwood was the first to move. He stood, fumbling for his wallet. "Ms. Rodriguez, there are no words. I cannot. I am so deeply, profoundly sorry for my wife's behavior, for all of this. Please, the meal, the $7,000 on wine. Let me pay." Elena held up a hand. "You're right, Mr. Blackwood. There are no words." She looked at Victoria. "You," she said. "Stand up." Victoria looked at her, her eyes wide and fearful. She stood, her Chanel jacket now looking like a cheap costume. "You are permanently banned from Aura," Elena said, her voice quiet but carrying the weight of a final judgment. "You are also banned from every single property in the Rodriguez Hospitality Group portfolio. That includes all 60 St. Adrian hotels. That includes our restaurants in New York, Paris, and London. That includes the Chateau Miron in Napa. Your name and your face will be flagged by our security teams globally." This was a social death sentence. Victoria's face crumpled. This was worse than being shamed. This was being exiled. This was being made a nobody. "You can't," Victoria whispered. "Please, I'll apologize. You had your chance to be a decent human being, and you chose to be cruel," Elena said. "You don't get another one. Not from me." She then looked at the check David was holding. "And you will not be paying. Not because I am comping you, but because I don't want your money. It's as dirty as your wife's attitude. I am writing this entire evening off as a catastrophic loss, a $10,000 lesson in hiring." 2 security guards, the internal team for the building, had already arrived and were standing by the door, summoned by James. "Now," Elena said, "leave my restaurant." David Blackwood, his face a mask of shame, took his wife's arm. Victoria, for the first time, looked small. She was no longer a tyrant. She was just a pale, trembling woman, stripped of her power. They walked out of the restaurant, past the 100 staring faces, into the LA night. The invisible woman had just made the most visible woman in the room disappear. As the door closed behind them, the restaurant remained silent. The staff just stared at Elena. This woman they thought was Lena, who was now standing at the head of the room, her apron still on the cart. Elena took a deep breath. She looked at Sarah, at Leo, at the terrified bar staff and the kitchen crew, including Chef Antoine, who had emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron, a look of dawning, shocked respect on his face. "Everyone," Elena said, her voice projected to the entire dining room of guests. "My name is Elena Rodriguez, and I am the owner of this restaurant. I offer my deepest apologies for the disruption to your meal tonight." She turned to her staff. "And to my team. I am sorry for what I've allowed this place to become. I am sorry I let a man like Mark Jennings run it. I am sorry that any of you ever had to endure a customer like that. That ends tonight." She walked over to the service station where Sarah was standing, looking utterly poleaxed. "Sarah," Elena said. Ms. Rodriguez, I had no idea." "I know, that was the point," Elena smiled, a real warm smile. "Sarah, you've been here since the beginning. You've held this floor together while he parted. You protected me. You protected Leo. You know this place better than anyone." I guess so." "Good. Starting tomorrow, you are the acting general manager of Aura. You'll be working with my transition team. You'll get a 40% raise, full benefits, and a new partnership contract." Sarah's hands flew to her mouth. "What? Me? But I'm a waitress." "You're a leader," Elena corrected. "You've just been doing it without the title or the pay. That's over." She then looked at Leo, the bus boy, who looked like he might faint. "Leo, how old are you?" 19, Ma'am," he whispered. "Are you in school?" I was, at community college, for hospitality management, but I had to stop, to pay for your family," Elena finished. "I know the look. Starting Monday, you're not a bus boy. You're my personal intern. You'll shadow me. And the Rodriguez group will be paying for your college tuition, all of it. We invest in talent." Leo just burst into tears. Finally, Elena looked at Chef Antoine, who was watching her with a critical, appraising eye. "Chef," she said. "Madame Rodriguez." He nodded, his arms crossed. "No more rinsed capers," she said. A slow smile spread across his face. "Et pas d'œuf de 45 secondes?" "And no 45-second eggs." "Jamais," Elena smiled back. "Never again. From now on, we cook our food. The right way. The menu you've always wanted. No more compromises." "Bien," Antoine said. "Good. This I can work with." Elena turned back to the shell-shocked diners. "To our guests, everyone, your dessert and your next round of drinks are on the house, as an apology and as a toast to new beginnings." A few people started to clap, then a few more. Within seconds, the entire restaurant, the one that had been held hostage by Victoria's venom, erupted in spontaneous, thunderous applause. Elena Rodriguez stood in the center of her restaurant, no longer Lena, the trash, but Elena, the founder. She had built this place. It had rotted from the inside, and tonight, she had ripped out the rot. The work was just beginning, but for the first time in a long time, Aura finally felt like it was hers. So what happens when you mistake an empress for a servant? You get a masterclass in consequences. Victoria Blackwood didn't just lose her favorite restaurant, she was exiled from the world she cared about, all because she couldn't show basic human decency. And Elena Rodriguez? She didn't just save her investment, she transformed the lives of her staff, proving that true wealth isn't about what you own, it's about the respect you give. This story is a powerful reminder. Be careful how you treat people. The trash you're looking down on today might just be the person who owns the entire building tomorrow. What did you think of Victoria's takedown? Let us know in the comments below. And for more real-life stories of karma and justice, make sure you hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to see it, and subscribe to our channel.